Well, this battery didn't charge. Joy. Oh, okay. So here we are, ready to start the late winter campaign, I guess. I'm trying to figure. See, the game is painful and cluttered enough if it worked, if the rules were all right, right? But anyway, here we are, I think, doing that, and I'll look it up and try to figure out if that's indeed where I actually should be. Of 1741, because the new year starts here. And so far, what have we done? We've done a couple of card plays. Prussia had its automatic card that it had to play, and three of the powers otherwise played a card. Prussia couldn't find one in the event card segment here. That's all that's happened. The Prussian card involved the invasion of Silesia, which they succeeded in doing. They kind of can't help it. We've discovered more and more problematic stuff with the game. And after a bit of sleep, one of the thoughts that I have is, Jesus, man, sunk cost fallacy here. You should just walk away. It's obviously too broken. A couple of problems with that. First of all, yes, it is a sunk cost fallacy in terms of, look, I've thrown so much effort, not just into the videos for it so far, but into learning the rules before getting to, expose them, and trying to get a grasp on the game, etc. as I go, as well as the cost for the game itself, the actual purchase price of the game, the angst of knowing that I'm going to be facing something that required, counters to be replaced and cards to be replaced and all kind of complex stuff like that in terms of presetting the game. All right. One of the questions that I had was regarding the colors on the cards, whether they represent anything. There is something in the errata referring to 6.4 and 2.11 that talks about how either Britain or Austria, France or Prussia or Spain or whatever, is able to play cards for Bavaria or Saxony. What that leads me to think is that here in 6.4, where it says, or perform CH raids for that power or any of its allies. Now, do we have alliances? 6.61 and 7.9. We'll take a look at those two. 6.61. Yeah, see, this is a little troublesome. And 7.9. Once a power allies with this, further diplomacy may be played. Yeah, see, here's the problem. Allies appears to be across the board with the Bourbon or the Pragmatics, right? But weird bit of shit. There's a lot of it from outside, but some of it is more painful than others, and that piece proved to be very painful. Or would. Okay, so the way that that's worded led me to think that maybe like I don't know. So, not to think in terms of like Austria or British own the Dutch, right? And they're allied to. I'm sorry, the British own the Dutch, and they're allied to that. I need to get the whole list. Let me go up there and I'll read it to you. But back to okay. Go see. This is part of it for me to get the rules errata because I'm not going to print things out because my printer's fucked up and all that kind of shit. I have to run upstairs, check the computer, sit there and look at it, and then compare it to rule book that I have here and whatnot. I'll bring this rule book up. But as to the sunk cost fallacy issue, which I wanted to get to before I get to this, I also have nothing else prepared to play. You know? So there's kind of the, hey, if I want to make video, if I want to do anything at all, if I want to be playing a game, it's got to be this. Now, I could just sit outside today and read the rules to an 18xx or to something light and get that on the table and playing and probably be better off for it. But there is a certain extent to which I feel like I have to try to give this a shot. Let me bring the comparison of this to what I've got on the errata. And we'll talk about both of those upstairs as to how to figure out, because I'm still trying to, I mean, look, there is absolutely no reason to put yellow on this card if it's not meant to be used for the Spaniards, right? And the one such color-based, now there's only 2 color-based card sets as far as I know. There's the French-Spanish divide and the Anglo-Piedmontese divide. And there's a special exemption that Piedmont, it is not necessary to play a Piedmont color card in order to activate Piedmont forces or have them conduct admin marches. But there is the for that power or any of its allies. Now, any of its allies are the Pragmatics and the Bourbons, okay? So if you read that as per the rules, it's pretty clear that I can use cards to do anything. Like, I could expend British cards to move Austrian pieces, okay? Would I want to? Maybe, maybe not. I can use French cards to move Prussian pieces. That's the way it's worded. Is that what they mean? And if it's not what they mean, well, then why do I need this exemption for Piedmont? And also, why do I need what I'm going to go upstairs and try to explain? Because it does, the way it's worded here, I could move anybody's pieces anywhere with any of the cards. That's how it's worded. We have this one clarification here, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but entirely Saxon forces can be activated by either French or Prussian cards when allied to the Bourbons. That seems par for the course by any of its allies, and by Austrian cards only when allied to the Pragmatics. Okay, that seems like another special exemption by the way it's read, but whatever. Entirely Dutch forces can be activated by either the British or Austrian cards. Historical note, although the Dutch were legally Austrian allies, their forces were almost entirely funded by the British and almost always used as contingents in British-led forces. The Saxons were also almost entirely employed as contingents of Prussian, French, or Austrian forces. Again, that feels like there's some sort of restriction beyond what's actually written in 6.4. Now here, if you read this, first of all, this is a clarification. Now also, it clarifies 2.11, which is the nationalities section. And I looked here. And what does that say? Each space begins under the control of a power designated by the color. There's all of the powers and its allies' spaces are considered friendly unless occupied solely by enemy forces. The Hungary square space may be occupied only by Austrians. All of those are prohibited from entering. There is nothing about card play in there at all, okay? I don't know why it's referring me there. Bourbon ally, main power. Okay, yellow is an ally, right? Dutch are an Austrian ally, main power. Hanover is a British ally. Austria is a main power, okay? So even if there is a distinction, I'm not sure yellow would apply anyhow, right? But there does seem to be some kind of attempt here with the, what is it, the Bavarians, Saxon or French or Prussian when allied by barbarians. No, the Saxons can be controlled by the Austrians only. Is some sort of nod to, well, there's some kind of control there. I honestly don't know, but I think I'm going to try to play the Spanish and Piedmont cards so that they only affect that nation. Can the French play their cards for Spain as a possible Bourbon ally? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Here's another gripe, just because I haven't given you enough griping about this game yet. That was labeled as a clarification. It is just an addition to the rules. You might convince me that the fact that the Dutch can be played by either the Austrians or the British, even though the Dutch are, according to 2.11, see, they're an Austrian ally. They're on the British card. What the fuck? But they're listed as an Austrian ally, not as a pragmatic ally or anything like that. So the fact that the Dutch are, and you can do combined forces of Austrians and Brits and stuff like that. So, you know, how much do cards matter? I don't know. But, and 6.4 seems to imply you can move any of your alliance, okay? But now there's this idea of a differentiation between an Austrian ally and a member of the Pragmatic Alliance. If I look up allies, we did this not long ago, 6.61, 7.9. 7.9 I think was the controlling one, or the one that seemed to. Once a power allies with the Pragmatics or Bourbons, if France, Saxony, Prussia alliances and belligerency. If France is still neutral when Saxony or Prussia allies with the Bourbons, the following apply. Okay, Saxony allied, I think. So Prussia allied with the Bourbons. Saxony, I think, did ally by moving it here. Now, whether it could have moved there, I don't know. I didn't like it, but it appears that there's rules for that. Saxon forces cannot leave Saxony until either France becomes a belligerent or an enemy force enters Saxony or overruns the Saxon SP. French may not move or attack even if France is allied. Okay. But yeah, I think the Saxons are now in the alliance, at war with Austria, but not very much so. Okay. Again, that's dependent on cards being able to be played that don't say may be played if neutral. It may not be a wise idea to have done that. I don't know. But yeah, the particular rule I was looking at said clarification. It is not a clarification because it actually directly contradicts what's said here. Because allies isn't well defined. The only place it's defined seems to be on the level of Pragmatics Bourbons, except there's a hint here where they say Austrian ally. That is the only place. That is the oh no, red, British ally. Okay, those reds are basically British units. Okay, they're treated in all ways as British, except for army rating, I think. And I'm not even sure about that. Yeah, they are. Because they've got the 5 army rating the same as them. Okay. Yes, they are British units for all intents and purposes. With a few minor exceptions, like Hanover right now seems to be in a special case where they're in the war, even though Britain's not. Until and unless I play a card that says they're not belligerent, like, well, they're semi-not belligerent. but they are considered belligerent. There's no marker or anything for them. The Russians are not really mentioned there, but there is something that mentions if the Russians end up controlled by one player or the other. I don't remember where the fuck that was. Is that under minor powers? Jesus. No, it's not. Russia. Here we go. Russia is a power. If the Pragmatics achieve an alliance with Russia, the Russian forces are controlled by the British or Austrian player respectively, depending on which power's event and or diplomacy card established the alliance. If Russia allies with the Bourbons, the French player controls the Russian powers. And depending on the card, depends on where the Russians show up. And also who controls them. Okay. So, yeah, I'm beginning to think that the color of the card should matter. That's not a clarification, but a rules omission that should be somewhere in here. Now, again, I asked this rule question. I don't expect, it was not answered yet, and I wouldn't expect it to be, you know. Even though it's been several hours, it's still, you know, dude's not watching BGG all the time, right? He has been trying to answer questions, but I really think that the color of the card is supposed to impact things. Okay, so let's move to what we're supposed to do. This is the New Year's phase. Advance the turn marker. We did that. Remove FOW chits. Place reinforcement leaders. Demote Conti in 1746. We don't do that. Okay, so we've got some leaders for 41, do we? Yeah, now again, this is fucking weird. The French have 2 leaders that come on the board anew, right? And the French haven't been allowed to do a damn thing. They got 2 new leaders already. And somewhere or another, and again, I just don't have much table space here. I wasn't expecting this game to eat up anywhere near this much space. Some of it is I have 2 counter trays. But let's see where leader placement comes into play. Placing new leaders. Whenever new leader is brought on, it's placed in any of the power's home spaces. For Austria, yeah. Okay. Now, subordinate leaders, I thought they affected something. They don't seem to. Do they affect combat? Am I missing something? Like, I know there was something in the strategy notes that said use your good subordinate leaders or something like that. Maybe it's in Austria. Okay, here we go. Regarding army leader composition, you have a lot of good subordinates, Brown in particular until he's promoted. In mid-war, you need those regaining the crown cards to get back. Yeah, they may just mean that, like, those subordinate leaders could be used on their own with smaller forces to do something. When I read subordinate leader, I'm thinking, and is it defined? Subordinate leaders, 3.3.3. How is that defined? Other leaders present in the same force as a senior leader are subordinate leaders. Each subordinate leader increases the maximum allowable strength of the force by his capacity when moving or attacking, which means 12 strength points. I don't know if their quality matters one bit. Like the fact that the player aid suggests that a good subordinate like Brown is useful doesn't really seem the case. It seems like a way to get him killed. General. Each player has an army rating. No, that's not the general. Commander rating. Each side's commander adds his offensive or defensive rating. Nothing about subordinates being added in there, which maybe they were supposed to be at one point and the player's notes don't reflect that. But yeah, subordinate is very specific to someone who's in the same force, allowing you to control more troops. Now I have to worry about that because each commander... Oh, now I can't remember where commanders were. Where's subordinate? 3.3.3. Because that's how I found it. There are two different types of leaders. Army leaders can move and attack with a force of up to 20 SP. So I've got to look at my forces here. So for example, good old Frederick, I moved him. Nassau's fine. He didn't have much. But Frederick had 5, 7, 8, 12. Okay. He was fine. He didn't need his subordinate commanders with him even, who are very good, but they don't help him. So, yeah, now I got to look at the French and figure out, well, here I have 19. That's going to be fine if he's with an army rating. That's the Army of Flanders. That'll be under Malbois. He has 1 star. Okay, what makes you an army leader? If you have a star. Okay. Any number of stars. And Belle-Ile, who has de Saxe with him, has 16, 17, 18, 22. So he actually needs a subordinate with him. It might make sense for me to give some other subordinate in there. So let's put Sauger, who kind of sucks, in there with him. And let's figure out where we want to put Chevette, who I don't know. I'll put him down here at Toulon. He's not doing any harm there. And I feel like I'm going to be fighting with this deep sequence of play to find such things. So now we don't demote Conti. Deploy fleet section 6.10. I think this is only if there are ones lying around. The French and British can discard 1 3+ strategy card per year in order to build 2 fleet sections. Fleet reinforcements do not count against this. The new French, Spanish, or British fleet sections are placed on the next year's space on the year track. When the year marker is advanced into that space, the sections are available. I think I would have had to have discarded cards earlier in the year, which I could have done at some point. I'm not sure if that's the event card segment or some other point. I've got something that's marked 6.10. That's the event card phase. Yeah, so let me put that down. I could have made the choice. May discard. Just to know when I would be allowed to do that. Okay, that's fine. And now I go in player order, and we reset that. Supply segment. Place SS markers, remove SP's SS value. All right. Well, everybody can trace. I don't know, because he's not in a fucking fortress. But everybody right now can trace back into supply. So no supply goes into place. Remove SPs equal SS value. We don't have any of that. Austrian irregulars, move any 2 CH units. I'm not going to be able to disrupt Prussian supplies, so I think I'll leave them where they are. Campaign card. Play 1 event card that allows a late winter movement. I will have to look through my cards 1 power at a time and see if anyone can campaign. We'll start with, of course, with Prussia. Honestly, I think I can ignore the French and the Brits. If they can only use their color for themselves, which is what seems reasonable. But, you know, honestly, the fact that the French and Spanish are together and there's nothing that seems to prohibit them from using their color. And then when I read the rules, the way the rules are written, I think the British could play a card to activate Austrian forces. Yeah, at least the way they're written. And that's what's convincing me more and more. Look, the rules are just wrong. There needs to be something that says you can only play your card to play your color forces, and minor allies or non-player allies, because Russia and there was one other that's not a minor. I don't know. Wasn't there? There was something other than Russia. Something else was in there. All right, we've got to check, because now my mind. Okay, where were powers? Minor powers, 7.8. The Austrian and Dutch are not a minor power, but, you know, but so Spain. Like, this is, and apparently, okay, Hanover, British garrison, those are special to Britain. So yeah, I mean, Spain is on the same level as Piedmont. So Spain and Piedmont are on the same level. That makes sense. Spain and Piedmont are both on cards, sort of. I can see them as real powers. But Russia is just this random power that tags into here and doesn't need cards and gets to play special. So the fact that it doesn't need cards kind of exempts it from all of this. But I'm not sure I can't play cards for them, right? Because there's special control rules for them as well. I think I cannot play cards. I think they're their own color and they just don't have cards and they operate in their own way. But, of course, I can incorporate them in my forces. And that's one of the problems in the whole game, is that you can incorporate an ally into your forces. I guess you have to command the force to be able to play your color card for it again. There's all kinds of rules. So if cards aren't just freely playable for anybody to move any force, there's all sorts of additional rules that are not in the game to support that. Like, if those were in there, right? Like, it would make more sense. But there's a lot of stuff that's simply not in the rule book that would be required to support this reading that I'm taking, that the color on the cards actually means something. Anything at all. Not just, yeah, I'll use my French cards to move the Prussians. Another complaint, these cards are damn near unreadable. Now, some of it's my lighting here. But this red text on orangish red background, you know, just painting background, this is not good at all. And everything on the cards, just the whole visual composition, etc. It may be pretty and everything. Who cares about looks if you're playing with a bubble map? But it may be pretty and everything, but it is nigh unreadable, the way they chose to print the designs. And again, these days, color printers and everything, these kind of cards must have been, something that looked like this must have been available to the playtest groups. But maybe the playtest groups played it all on fucking Vassal. Maybe that's why they never needed the rules. I don't know. And we've got the sort of snowballing collateral effect issue that we had with Piacenza as well, where I'm just so frustrated with everything. That just everything feels like a pain. I couldn't find any cards that have a winter campaign on them. But I'm looking at some of these. There's like place 1 CH marker with any Austrian force and 3 CH markers in Vienna. What does that mean? Okay. There are also cards that only work if there's CH markers in here, because I've got additional CH markers. Okay, I don't know how they come into play, so let's look them up. Croats and Hussars 12.1. Like, place is what I normally do to get them out of there. See, be removed from the CH box and placed either with Austrians. Certain allow them to be placed on the map. In addition, during any Austrian campaign segment, up to 2 can be adjusted as follows. I am guessing that placed on the map is adding new ones. So I would get like 3 new ones from that card. I don't want to do it. I don't know why, because I'm going to get like, oh no, I don't get any new cards this year. This is a special year. Yeah, so I'm going to say no campaign segment. Remove Warn and DM. Nobody's got any. This is actually part of the player turns. Winter Quarters evicted movement. Well, now wait a minute. We didn't go to Winter Quarters? I'm guessing we were officially in Winter Quarters. Forces evicted from Winter Quarters get 2 AP moved to the next. Now, evicted does not count as having engaged, I think. Let's look at that. 17.4. Right, it doesn't sound like it. If due to enemy winter campaign activity, not your own, a force was evicted from its winter quarters space, it may expend another 2 APs. To get there. And if it can't reach, it suffers winter attrition. So I think the fact that I had a winter quarters card, I might be not holding all these fortresses and everything, and I would be allowed to be sieging them over the winter or whatever, I guess. Which feels a little weird, but as it is, nobody was evicted, so I can ignore this rule. And that was the Prussian turn. Now we go through the Austrian turn. Yeah, I went to the campaign card segment. Each player gets all of these. Then each player gets all of these. Anyway, nobody had anything impact them. I'm not the only person who complained that there's no AP CP counters available. Someone else mentioned, batteries. Someone else mentioned, and apparently the only answer that was given, I don't know if it was, by the designer or by just another player, was, well, you can pull your counters out of Clash of Monarchs. Yeah, wouldn't it have been nice if this game was closer to Clash of Monarchs? And I'm assuming something didn't work with the complexity of the diplomacy, etc. here. And this just feels so much more painful in so many ways than anything I remember of Clash of Monarchs. With this huge sequence of play. I'm going to go look at Clash of Monarchs. I'm going to see. But first, let's finish this up. Depot removal. Remove all depots from the map. Well, we had a whole bunch of them on the map. Didn't we? Yeah. Did they serve any fucking purpose? Why were they set up? Okay, let's make sure that depot removal is supposed to happen, because there's a lot of special rules here, and it really kind of sucks for some countries. Depots are not removed. Cool. Okay. Holy Roman Empire status check. Award 1 VP to France if Charles VII is Holy Roman Emperor. Well, he's not. Nothing's happened, so he couldn't be. Advance the season marker. Remove all CH not stacked with AU. Remove all guerrillas. There aren't any CH not stacked. Remove would be going back to here, I assume. There are no guerrillas. So we are now entering the spring admin phase. And there are additional special rules here. Only Prussia and Austria get reinforcements, and both get redeployment, and draw phases are skipped. All other phases are resolved normally. Now, I'm hoping the Austrian army can take these extra British subsidy forces. I don't know. I don't know how much they have. How do I figure that out? Well, I paw through all the Austrian units and add them up and see if they hit 120 with 20 cav. I think I'm at about 51, somewhere in that range. But this is a horrible way to handle things, right? There's just no counter for this, yet there's some limit. If you want to do this, with this kind of situation, do something like, and maybe I'll do this, do something similar to how War and Peace handles it. There's a force pool that you can draw from. There's still plenty of counters to make change and everything, but there's a force pool on each player map. I think I'm going to do that because it kind of makes sense to say, look, this is all you can have, no matter what happens. This is the maximum size of your army, and it's available there. It doesn't make sense to have to count all the counters each time. So what I'll do is, I don't know what the easiest way to do this is. It would just have been helpful to tell me, hey, here's the size of your force pool to put there. But yeah, I'll figure that out and pencil it in as to force pool limits for this, in case, in the very odd circumstance that I would ever be able to play this again. As it is, you know, look, there are broken games that I want to get around to fixing. I can tell you right from the start, this is not one of them. This is just not one of them. It's such a shame, too, because Clash of Monarchs really was a classic game. It really was. Yes, maybe it pushed the boundaries of CDGs. This feels like it's pushing them further, but more or less by, like, you know, not having written the rules and making the cards unreadable and putting information in places where it's putting information like on cards that tell you key elements of the game, like the you can't play these other two cards until you've played, or you can't play this other card until you've played either this card or a different card. The different card doesn't say it, but most importantly, the card that, you know, requires you to know this doesn't say it. It's just and it's not in the rules or anything. It would be annoying in the rules too. It should be on the card. It should be on all three of the cards. The two cards should say, this is a prerequisite for this. And then the other thing should say, you need either this or that. But yeah. Okay, let me go look at Clash of Monarchs. What was it, my question about Clash of Monarchs? I don't remember. Oh yeah, does it have this complicated a sequence of play? Because I don't think it did. And I know that the events were mostly offloaded onto a table. Like all the complex, funky events were offloaded onto a table. Whereas here, some of them are, and I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure, like diplomacy and stuff like that feels like, yeah, the national effort is being put towards that instead of towards military. Although how reasonable is that, right? Like, are you spending, are you foregoing building troops and training them in order to conduct diplomacy? Or do you just have a capacity for these things? And you might convince me that at some meta level, right? So like, look, there was a huge expenditure in World War II on the Manhattan Project. And maybe all that effort, all that will towards that, the people who are directing it and everything, could have been put into getting a few more munitions to the field. Or, certainly other research projects would have been possible. But honestly, for the most part, if you take a look at the game that handles this the best, A World at War, Advanced Third Reich, etc., it actually handles it just right. You have points for research, you have points for diplomacy, you have points for all these different things, and you can divert some of, and it's very limited, some of your production capacity to these other, to give a bonus to these other things. But that's the most you can do. Here, I've got cards where I have a choice of, do I want to expend this on building fleet, building troops, very low numbers of both, conducting possibly a massive campaign, which certainly requires some cost. There's no question about that. But it feels like, I don't know. It depends on what the campaign is, to tell you the truth. It really does. Like, there is a definite cost to moving a large army around on Europe, and is that the cost of one additional SP? It feels like it probably isn't. But then I also have the opportunity to do stuff that just doesn't seem to cost me much, like holding some diplomacy, the fleet building, yeah, you can convince me that. Confirming Hanover's neutrality. That just feels like that should be a player choice, right? Of which of these cards to play. And it really shouldn't affect my points at all. This is something I could discard and get a troop strength point for, right? Or a fleet point, I think. I don't know. Fleet points take a higher value card, right? Takes a 3 or more. So, yeah. I mean, maybe most of the diplomacy is such low value that you're really talking about things that are like this is a potent possible card. Cancel a French force activation. But it only cost me 1. So, it's worth doing. Fleet sortie. There's definitely a cost to a fleet sortie, so yeah, I can buy that that's worth 4. Martin's Ultimatum. Doesn't tell me anything about it. It could be a fleet sortie, but as a one-time event, transfer all Naples SPs back to Naples. They may not leave until they offends the interest of my house is played, or 6 listed seasons after this event was played. I hope this has a counter. I hope it has a counter, because it looks like it needs to have something somewhere. I do not see one. Oh no, there. It does not have a counter. Yeah, so somehow or another you have to remember when that was played. You're gonna need like some kind of marker to say when it applies. Now 6 full seasons, that's a long time. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a year, so it's going to be a little longer than a year. which means I guess you would put like if you had a marker, you could put it on here in the next one, say rotate it or something like that. But what the fuck? There's no counter. There's no way to cope with it, right? So not only do you have to just check the box, you have to write the year, or actually the full season that it occurred in order to take that into play. But anyway, I'm getting caught up again, but there just aren't the components to play this game. One of the things about so they gave me a free counter, right? They gave me a free extra counter, but they couldn't give me the command points or action point counter. One of the two would have been nice. I guess they couldn't give me one, when they wanted to give both or something like that. I don't know. But there was a mention in that same thread that answered the question of, yeah, you could dig them out of your Clash of Monarchs if you want. Yeah, I got plenty of bonus counters. I could, make one. But also, there was like this statement of, well, I guess they were really trying to keep it to 2 counter sheets. Okay. They did print on extra counters. A lot of them, they printed some replacement counters, some of which maybe didn't need to be done, like the Limoges or whatever his name is here. Ligonier. They had it pronounced Legionnaire. They had it spelled Legionnaire. They corrected the spelling of his name, but still didn't give counters that maybe would have been very helpful if you wanted to actually play the game, as opposed to keep track of other stuff. And, just sucks, man. Just sucks. Okay. So, yeah, we were going to check Clash of Monarchs. Cool. That is new. That big color chart. Maybe that's just confusing me. The sequence of play for Clash of Monarchs was significantly less complex. Maybe half as complex. Okay. The cards in Clash of Monarchs are at about the same level as these cards, I would say. Just in terms of, not visibility, etc. The visibility on these cards sucks. But in terms of the level of the events, yes, there's diplomacy type things, etc. But I think there's an attempt to balance the card values in, not so much with play balance, but more with what resources would you be giving up? A 1-point card is not worth much. You can't move a unit for the most part. You can move Belle-Ile. You might be able to move Freddy when he gets better. Yeah, Frederick goes down to a 1 initiative as well. So the very best of leaders or whatever could be activated with a 1-point card. But for the most part, you're not going to be able to get, a campaign out of that kind of card or something. So those 1-point cards are going to be pretty iffy. And those appear to align with the idea of if you want to do diplomacy or something, you can use that. So there's that. But you know what there is in that game? Force pools! Why is there no force pool on these? Well, I'm going to fix that, and that's going to take me some time. I set up, I think, the correct force pools. Now, here's the problem. Force pools don't actually work with the game as written. Now, they worked fine in Clash of Monarchs. They would work fine here if they were supported by the rules, right? There's no reason not to use them, but in terms of the way the rules are written, you have a maximum of 135 strength points, no more than 25 of which can be cav, which I've deployed as, look, I put all the cav out there and said, yeah, okay, I've got the 25 cav, which means there's 17 extra here plus whatever's on the board. Take that off the 135 and I get, the remainder between what's on the board. I subtract what's off the board from that and I get however much infantry's here, which is quite a bit, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 71 more infantry sitting there. The force pools are fucking huge. I don't think those force pool limits are going to be exceeded easily. The only case where they maybe would be is with the Austrian subsidy or something like that being able to come in. But even that is quite, there's quite a lot of extra room there. I get only 2 infantry strength points per turn. But anyway. What it means is, if for some reason I use up all my infantry and I don't want to use cav, I would have to start exchanging cav 1 for infantry and figure out some way of annotating that. As it stands, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think these nations are going to reach their force pool limits. I just don't think it's going to happen. They do in War and Peace, and they do in the original Third Reich, but whatever. My hopes are here it's not going to happen, just because the cost of getting additional troops is so high, and there's got to be room for you to be able to get those additional troops if you want to. One of the reasons I think they might not have done force pools is not to create this special flexibility that I think is bullshit anyway, right? Like, I think there's no argument in favor of it. But I think is countermix. There were not a lot of French units, and I know the game is kind of was pushing the countermix. I think that's why the force pools were withdrawn from it, which is a shame, but whatever. I think the force pool could have been maintained, and certainly with the counters I have, I don't see a real problem with it. It's possible that I might run out of some particular denomination, and then I could just put a piece of paper that, handles that or whatever, So I'm not too worried about that facet of things. But then there's the other factor, which is that the miners just have a straight SP value. And I can't treat them as force pools because of that, which kind of sucks. Kind of sucks. Apparently they could have all cav forces. Now, yes, they're smaller armies, and maybe there's enough horses, etc. available. Maybe there's enough nobility in Saxony to arrange for that. But it does mean that I've got to use the stupid side of things for the minor powers, because they just have a strength point basis. I would much rather see force pools everywhere, but whatever. I don't know if the miners had force pool sizes in Clash of Monarchs either. I'm pooped. Didn't get much done, but yeah, I'm gonna put these up here, and we're gonna start the spring turn. I wanted to give some of the example of how painful, and I could have certainly done both the winter campaign seasons together, but I wanted to get that early winter campaign season out there just to show how much stress this game put on me just to begin with, to try to figure it out. I could decide to write down force pools for everyone except Prussia, I think. Everyone else, these are right. But they're kind of a weird situation because, again, technically the cav isn't part of the force pool. I think I'll pencil them in. The Prussians I can't do because they took some losses and I don't know what their actual strength is. I find it kind of amusing, or I don't know, maybe not amusing, but an interesting factor, that to come down and play something like this, and many of the games that I play, many of them, there's this sort of, I have a duty to do it, and I force myself down, and I don't want to do it, but I know I have to somehow to get through it. And this isn't just on video. This happened even when, before I did video with gaming in general. there would just be games where I'd be like, you gotta get more into it. You gotta play some more, whatever. Everything else in life, or nearly everything else, I don't do that for, right? Now, for, I guess, 15 years or so, I managed to convince myself with work. Although I didn't feel the same, oh geez, I don't want to do this once I was working from home. But it is just very, very odd. Like other things that I should be doing, that I should be prioritizing over these videos, over playing games. It's just not even an option. It's very, very odd. Anyway. Place reinforcements SPs from spring reinforcement boxes. Okay. Right now, no extra chits have been placed yet, but what we have to do is, and if we look at the scenario special rules, which soon will be running out, only Prussia and Austria get reinforcements in both the redeployment and draw phases are skipped. Okay. We'll worry about that in a bit. But here, the Prussians get 4 infantry and a cav each year. Well, I'll have to, there's my cav. We'll move that in there. But I also have to create 4 infantry. And likewise, the Austrians are going to get this as well as 2 infantry per year. Failed to play this card correctly. Add 10 AU infantry SP plus 2 AU cav and 1 depot to any AU forces and place the subsidy marker in the spring box. I think this just stays there forever. It's not clear. We got a compendium of cards. Maybe it tells me. Not in order, of course. I mean, they kind of try 1, 7, 11, 14. This is 3. It is not, it's not in there. So what do we do? Place the AU subsidy, British subsidy here. Does anything remove it? You know, that would be a useful thing. If I know that something removes the counter, it would make sense. I know that the British continually were supporting the Austrians, so I'm going to guess that this stays in there because the card is unplayable. Oh. We got a ship on this card. Did we have a ship on the French card? We got a ship on the French card. That means something. That meant something. Something happened because of that car, that little ghost ship. Which is, again, the cards are not easy to cope with. This is barely noticeable to me. Alright? It's clearly there when I look for it. But I don't remember what that does. I think it gives me a it gives me something. I don't know the word for it. Okay, it gives me a fleet sortie, I think is what it's called. Okay, it doesn't have it under fleet. It doesn't have it under sortie. So I will look at sea transport, which maybe is close to that at 16. Fleet sortie. Yeah. They can only conduct a fleet sortie by playing a fleet sortie event card or expending a fleet sortie marker. 1 fleet sortie marker is received each time a card with the fleet sortie symbol on it is played for CPs. So I do not get them because I played for event. Gotcha. And again, I just feel like so much of the game is going to be me looking up some special rule like that, right? I don't remember this kind of problem with Clash of Monarchs. I just don't. I do not. Okay. Place reinforcements. Okay. Now we actually place the reinforcements from the spring box. Let's look. All powers receive and place reinforcements from their spring box. Oh, I forgot to give me those extra points. Let me put those extra points somewhere. I don't know where. So I split them between the main army and this force here. I don't have an army for that. I could call that the Army of Lorraine. That's not what it is. But I don't know. And now, like in EU, I have this weird... I have to keep my commanders kind of flexible. But now I actually place the reinforcements from spring reinforcement boxes, and this is done 18.11. Okay, now I have to worry. Saxony is opposed to me now, and it's not any kind of secret or anything. I think I want to again boost my forces up here. Now I got to pay attention to my sequence of play because I have redeployment. I can redeploy all my leaders and up to 5 SP freely between spaces belonging to that player, occupied by at least one friendly SP or depot. I don't think I want Traun here. Now I got to look at the leader requirements though. Where is that? Is that going to be under leaders? 2.21, 3.3. I'm guessing 3.3. Theater command requirements. Close enough. In each of the 3 theaters, the largest force at the start of the year must be commanded by a 2-star leader if available, and if not, a 1-star leader. If any such leader is started or come in as a reinforcement. Except Prussians, throughout each season, forces led by 2-star leaders must be maintained as the largest in each theater. If losses... Okay, but what are my theaters? Like, I think Lorraine is the German theater, including the Dutch. So I could put some butthead up here or down in Italy. Either of which seem pretty much backwaters, which means that I can get rid of this stupid Nypurg. I used to work for Nypurg. Okay. But my leadership command is also restricted. 20 SPs for starred leaders, 12 for unstarred leaders. So whatever size army I build, I have to have enough subordinates for. For the Prussians, I'm unable to reinforce directly into Silesia, so I gave them to Old Decimir here, or Dessauer, I don't know. And for the Austrians, I split between the Bohemian and Moravian forces. Presumably, I could throw the Lorraine army in there as a holding box, and I might do that, because they're not really theater-based, just to control for things better. I am actually running out of countermix to some extent, in the sense that the Austrians are out of 5s and 10s. And I don't think that's got anything to do with my particular deployment so much as just they don't have enough counters to cover their entire force pool. The French got some additionals. I think they have plenty, but I think we may see with some of these other countries, you're gonna end up having to use. It's not that I'm out of strength and can't do it. It's just that I'm having to use, 2 two twos and a 1 instead of a 5 where I'd want to. And some of it seems to come down to, hey, maybe you have too many 5s, but I don't know if I really do. Because I've got 10s in both of these now. I don't know. Anyway, each belligerent power may redeploy all its leaders and up to 5 SPs between spaces that belong to that power and are occupied by at least one friendly SP or depot. Now this is interesting. The receiving and placing, which isn't very specific here. Let's go look at it again. This is like the 4th time I've looked at it while trying to do this. Just to give you an idea, you think maybe I catch things easily. Any of the powers non-enemy occupied home spaces. I think that's different from belong to. I would say that these belong to. Do they? You don't know. Again, terms are not defined, right? If you're going to use a term like belong to, well, you can make a pretty good argument that these spaces belong to Austria, but Prussia happens to be occupying them. But maybe after a peace, they would belong to Prussia, after they integrate. Certainly by 7 Years' War, Frederick has integrated much of Silesia into his territory. So, I'm going to use belong to as being occupied by, because home space seems to indicate something different. Do we have a definition? I'm pretty sure we do not. Yes? Yeah, we don't have terms like belong to being defined anywhere. All of a power's and its ally spaces are considered friendly to that player and occupied, unless occupied solely by enemy. The Hungary is the nationality of a space. But terms like home space, for Prussia, is this really their home? Or is it just belonging to them and not occupied by, and that this is neither, it's just occupied? Yeah, I don't know. But I'm going to go with, if it's the color, it's a home space. If it's occupied by, it belongs to them, because possession is 9/10 of the law or something like that. And I'm going to go pee or something. I was ruminating doing that. I really love that I've found a place in my yard I can just sort of sneak into and not have to use toilet. I don't mind using the toilet in general, but it's like, if it's the same distance to walk, I'd rather just go outside. But in certain, there's certain games that I'm willing to cope with a sort of a loose type of rule set. One that is just insufficient. I think back to campaigns of Marlborough that I played not that long ago. So that even, we're looking at the me of nowadays, more or less, right? Not the me. Although, like EU, I learned campaigns of Marlborough back in the 90s. So I'm not facing a brand new game that's that messy. But what I find is that what's missing, there's a lot of intuitive stuff in the game. The game rules feel intuitive in a lot of ways. I can make an explanation of why something's X, why it's Y. I find that a lot harder with more modern designs. And, with this game, it's just very hard for me to come up with argument, I could come up with arguments on both sides as to just about everything, right? As to this. But look, I would have settled that, right? If it had been that badly written in Campaigns of Marlborough, I would have settled it with no problem. Somehow I just feel like, I don't know, you're throwing all these cards and everything at me, and I expect something more polished. And to some extent, I think it's a fair complaint. I'm looking at an $80 boxed game that has been in development for a decade or longer. And I'm expecting it to be good, you know, polished, complete. I don't mind a few errors. Campaigns of Marlboro, it's a fucking 3W magazine game. I know it's gonna be shit. But anyway, where the hell am I? So I deployed the forces. Now I think I'm at that redeployment. Okay. Now, what's kind of interesting is there's no ordering on this. These are done, I guess, simultaneously, although they feel a little weird. And what am I going to do? I don't know. I'm definitely going to be moving Traun up into Austria. I'm probably going to be moving Nyberg and Lobakitz into backwaters, because there's nothing like an EU where, hey, you got your major army somewhere, you got to have your highest ranked leader there. All you have to do is I don't remember where the leader redeployment is. Good God. It's 3 point something, isn't it? Yeah. It's back here. In each of the 3 theaters, the largest force must be commanded by a 2-star leader if available, if not a 1-star leader. Not the most important theater has to be commanded by your 2-star leader. So I can actually dispatch shithead here to a backwater. You couldn't do this in EU. In EU, you had to have your most important leader on top of your biggest stack anywhere. This was really a problem in EU because you couldn't you couldn't create a Spanish army to go deal with the Aztecs, and you really kind of need one. Not the 150 troops that Cortez had, right? You really need an actual army to do it, so that you get a firepower effect on them, so that you can break them and siege the city and everything. Otherwise, you're just asking for trouble. Like, the chances of you succeeding in taking out the Aztecs or Incas or whatever is almost nothing without an army. So you need to send an army, which means you have to arrange for there to be bigger armies in Europe. It doesn't have to be a big army, it can be a tiny one. But the problem is you have no firepower table in EU in that first period. And yeah, it works out anyway. In that game, across the whole map, you had to worry about it, and you had leaders who couldn't be in certain areas. So, you're devoted to, well, if I want somebody on the rest of the world map who has a decent enough army to deal with, say, the colonial uprising or whatever, I have to build up a huge English army if it happens at the wrong time, because I don't have leaders who can go on the rest of the world map who are highly ranked enough. It's also possible with the Portuguese that you get caught in a war for Portugal itself, and you're not allowed to use, I don't remember who it is, the leader who went and sacked all the areas like Goa and stuff like that and took them. I can't remember his name now. But he's your highest ranked leader. So he actually commands your biggest force. And he's only allowed on the rest of the world map. And can't command a force in Europe. Which means that you're kind of ripe for being taken out by the Spaniards. If they so desired. They probably don't. But there's just this crazy situation where if you were in a European war, you would still be more devoted to going off and dealing with your colonization issues rather than defending Portugal. And it's just flaws in that system. This one, I like the flexibility, but it feels a little weird to say that my commander-in-chief is not being assigned to the most important theater. I don't know. Me. Alright, I gotta undo everything because the redeployment phase is skipped. I got down to the bottom and hit this exception. Let me make sure. Only pressure and both the redeployment and draw phases are skipped. Everything else is resolved. So I would actually be here. Okay. I've got to undo everything that I just did. And that's kind of cool because it forces me to have shitty leaders. But I did quite a bit. I pushed an extra strength point into Prussia from here. That's the only thing I did with the Prussia. Oh, no. Not into there. Into Nassau. This command. So I got to replace a Prussian there. Up there. And with the Austrians, I reorganized their entire command structure, and I've got to reset everything. And I also moved 5 strength points from here into the main army. I'm going to keep the Lorraine army on the board, but I've got to reorganize and get the leaders back where they belong. Doing all that puzzling of the redeployment and then undoing it, that's worn me out. So we're putting these markers here, and we'll be back later at some point. I don't know when. I don't know how much of this I can cope with. Might be picking up somebody else, some other rule book or something, just to be able to end this a little bit more quickly. I just find myself paging through the rule book again and again to find shit. And that, I don't know what's up with that. Like, I don't know if that's my inability to remember stuff, the snowballing of problems causing me more issues, or if this is actually just harder to cope with. Or, well, my age, or if it's just harder to cope with than like Clash of Monarchs was. Or I may actually be being more fastidious about following the rules and getting things right. Maybe, I don't know. Something about this, has effects on me, right? Just the existence of that thing. And the sequence of play is just more complex. It is about twice the size of the Clash of Monarchs one. So I don't know. Yeah, it's Monday night, and had a drink, read some, out on the porch, played some Raid, went to sleep for a bit, and kind of can't avoid coming down here to play this. But, and it's kind of funny, like, actually, I've got several hours before I have to be on for Raid. This would be a really good night to have something that I wanted to play. But facing this, I don't know. All right, we're on the Fog of... sorry, not Fog of War. It looks like Fog of War to me. Fortunes of War. So what I do is I grab those 3 chits, wherever the hell they are. There they are. And I figure out a randomizer. I got some coffee or something, and I'll be putting them in those 3 spaces. But I got to get me some way of randomizing them. I'll just use dice. I don't know which one's which, so that's easy enough. Unfortunately, they don't actually go on there. This is somewhat annoying. Like, I probably shouldn't be using that as where I put the phase, but in the spring event phase, yeah, let me get them here. Spring event phase. That'll be here. Reinforcement event. Yeah, I don't know. Admin reinforcement event. Yeah. All right. Summer event phase. I'll be over here. Falls will be here. I just I want to use this for a while to see if it helps me. And then Army and Fleet Sustain. Now, I don't think there is, I don't know if there is one. It's discard 1 or 2 cards. Now let's make sure that I do this in the first turn. I think I do. Yeah, apparently I do. So I've got to pick, each player has to pick a card that they don't really want and throw it away. A card or 2. It's not a terrible mechanism, you know. Allows you to winnow your hand. But whatever. Red text doesn't work for me. Let me explain why. I went looking for 3 CPs for AU bonus activation in late winter. I looked for the main text saying something about late winter. This was a card which may be played in late winter only. The red is not what I was searching for. Now I know where it is. I could have done a late winter campaign with my Austrians. I didn't think I had such a card because this just said for bonus activation. It didn't say anything about what I expected to see, which was early or late winter being specified on the card itself. Instead, I mean, it's on the card, but it's just not where I expected it, right? Like, I'm trying to find my discards. I found one for Prussia. I'm working my way through, but again, this, like, you know, sure, it is a prerequisite that it be a late winter season joint. It be a late winter season, but simply not what I was expecting to see. Oh well, you know, we're going to run into shit like that all the time where there's information. The way these cards are presented, they don't jump out at you with all of what they have to say. See, this is going to be a long fucking one. I think I'm going to discard this one because it can only be played in 41 or later. Well, it is 41. I could play this. Yeah, I'm debating between 2 1-point cards I could get rid of. It's an interesting looking card. It gives an AU, it gives an MW to the Austrians, and it throws some extra CH counters on. But the thing that intrigues me here is, and 3 CH with markers in Vienna, place leaders Kevin Huller and Bernklau in and or transfer to Vienna. Okay. Well, if it's a place in, I would expect them to be over here in my reinforcement counter, so I quickly looked there, or over here, and they're not in either of those. So they've got to be on the board somewhere. Okay. Okay, there's Bernklau, which means Kevin Huller's here. Yeah, okay. So I could grab these and move them to Vienna. That sounds more useful. I was like, I couldn't find those leaders, but now I do. And there's a frustration level that's just building and building and building, just like there was with Piacenza, in terms of, like, once you put a certain burden of pain on me, every little fucking thing starts getting worse and worse. Every little tiny thing is more likely to annoy and get me upset. So I think I'll keep that. That could be useful later. Place or increase short supply level. Yeah, I've got another one of these in my hand that's worth more points, so I'm going to discard that one. The interesting thing is, by the time I get to my next draw segment, is that when the wider wars come in here? By the time I get to my next draw segment, I am going to be getting all my cards back, I think. There aren't that many over here, you know? Yeah, I'll have an opportunity to play a few, so maybe I won't get them all back, but anyway. Alright, so that's 2 players down. Let's go to the French. I really thought those leaders were not on the board. Briefly, the French decided to throw away a Spanish battle card. The Spanish aren't in the war, and I don't have any cards that put them in the war. So, as a 1-point card, it seems pretty useless to me right now. Again, maybe I don't get enough cards to cover everything, but I think I'm going to get a draw that's big enough that gives me all my cards. So that one goes away. For the British, I have hard call. First of all, Fleury's Jealousy. By the way, somebody pointed out for me, it's in the Fog of War, or I'm sorry, it says Fog of War to me. You give me FOW, that's Fog of War. Fortunes of War, chit, the event chit for that can cause his death. I think it happens in 41 or something like that. I don't know. He's an old man. This one removes Belle-Ile from the map, puts Broglie. Well, Belle-Ile's very good. I'm assuming Broglie is not that good. So I'm making this kind of, interested in playing one of these. So I'm going to hold on to this because I have two other one-point cards. I could cancel a French force activation, even if I'm neutral. That could be helpful, except the French aren't in the war, so I don't know. And I've got the Protocol of Neustadt, which confirms Hanover's neutrality, which might be useful to me as well, but it gives a -1 to the British will, and we have the opposite to that. That's not it. Dresden Conference? This card or Protocol of Neustadt must be played before the British player can play any other diplomacy events involving any other powers. I don't know what the any other powers means, right? Like does that mean only major powers? So negotiations influences Piedmont. I think they're a power, so I would say I can't play that. This one also influences Piedmont. Like, I don't know what kind of diplomatic card wouldn't affect a power. But anyway, I kind of don't want to play the Protocol of Neustadt, but I also feel like I have more flexibility by holding that in my hand in case I want to play the other one. I think I'm going to roll a die on this because I don't know that France is not able to enter the war. I'm going to discard this, it turns out. Like, if I thought France was going to be able to enter the war, I would hold that other card. I'm probably going to discard that one. Oh no, France has to discard another card. Okay, I got to go find another card for France because they have to discard 2 cards. Oh, Austria has to too. Oh shit. Shit. 2 other 1-point cards that, again, I was kind of on the line about. This one I don't really like. If it's played after France enters the war only, Modena allies with the Bourbons. Well, I don't think I can enter the war with the hand that I have, so I'll throw that. And this one's the Maria Theresa one, which I was also considering in line with this. I don't really like throwing both of them, but you know, it gives me a bunch of these CH markers. It doesn't really feel to me like Prussia is necessarily going to extend their supplies deep into me, but they might. If they go for Bohemia and whatnot, they might well. So these all find their way into discard piles. And there's no current Prussian deck because they start with all their cards, which again is just one of those things that kind of blows my mind, right? And I have made it to the spring event card phase. Each power is allowed to play a card as an event, but I think the Fog of War happens first. I'm just going to keep calling it that because that's the only thing I can think of when I see FOW. Like, it would be if like they had OP for observation protocol or something like that. Yeah, okay, observation points. You know, it would just be like, well, wait, what? And all right, but it is kind of a Fog of War. Let me swap batteries and we'll do that. And we're getting to the end of a season. One that nothing happens in, granted, but you know, we've done a little bit. We moved some Prussian units. There's no way the game should take this long among people who are used to it and whatnot. But, and yes, there's a lot of rants and everything going on, and a lot of struggling, you know, like the cards. Their visibility is just not good to me. I am not absorbing the information on them. So that's causing issues. But I would argue that dealing with rules lookups in an early play, like let's say you're playing this, I don't know, not necessarily, maybe you played it solo once, and you're bringing it to a group or whatever, I think you'd still be making a lot of these rules lookups. And I think you'd still have players struggling with being able to read the cards. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Okay, so we are in the spring. FOW actually was supposed, no, that's chip placement. Okay, so the FOW comes after each player can play a card as an event. Now I have 6.10, that's going to be the fleet shit here. The French and British can discard one 3+ card to build additional fleets. And again, I think this is done in player order always. I'm not sure about that. In all 5 seasons, players act in the following order. Yeah, cool. It's funny, fleet sections come in singles as well. I'm going to discard a card for both players to get a fleet section. Like, they come in 1 point, I guess, for losses or whatever. And they're going to both place in the Atlantic here. The English are giving up a fleet sortie card. That's okay. They have like a couple more in their hand, so that feels like a reasonable one. I'm giving this one up for the French. Stack a French leader on top of Louis, useless leaders, offensive and defensive DRMs for all purposes. Louis's not going to command anything, I hope. So, is that Broglie there? Yeah, that's Broglie up there. He's not that bad. He's not Belle-Ile, but I thought he'd be really horrible. I mean, it's definitely a reduction. And then command for the rest of the year, you use Louis' initiative and action point ratings, which are going to suck, I'm sure. Yeah, they're not good. And then, he has nowhere near the action points that Belle-Ile has. But then the other one, and the more valuable card portion of this, was I could play this before 1744, Saxe-Rising. Any fortress currently under siege by a force commanded by Saxe immediately surrenders. France isn't in the war. I don't think they can get in the war. That's the primary reason. But also, Saxe is like a subordinate commander under Belle-Ile. Now, he could be left behind in order to in order to besiege something. And that wouldn't necessarily be a terrible plan, but I'm not really facing many fortresses. Freiburg here, which I think would fall fairly quickly. So I'm not really that concerned about either one of those opportunities for the French. Let's put that there. Lighting is bad here. Okay, now we pull the Fog of War. Yes. And we see what it says. It says treasure fleet. Oh no. Oh, it's over here. Oh, it's got its own little space. Awesome. Okay, treasure fleet, huh? What do I want to do about a treasure fleet? Well, I built up my ship. I don't know. Like, I know I have a chance to try to bring it in, and the English have a chance to intercept it. I don't know much else about it than that. 5.2, 16.3. Let's check 5.2 first, because I don't think that's going to actually handle anything. That's just well, maybe. When the treasure fleet is revealed, the French player may attempt a treasure voyage if he has at least one fleet section in the Atlantic box. and plays a fleet sortie or fleet sortie marker. Remember, I didn't get markers, even though I played cards with ghost ships on them, because I didn't play them for CPs. I played them for event. If he decides not to do so, nothing happens. Okay, I'm going to do this, and the English get to try a naval interception, because I get something. I don't know what. I get something from the treasure fleet coming in, and it's a relatively big something. I'm sure it says here. Okay, if the French succeed, up to 20 SP can be placed in the French spring reinforcement box. Naval interception and naval combat tables are on the player aid card. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go find myself a fleet sortie card. I only had one, and it's this Spanish card. I don't know. Am I not allowed to use it because it's not the French one? I don't fucking know. And can the British really intercept me, even though we're not at war? Seems like that would lead to a war. But is this treasure fleet really French? I really don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'd made the decision that I'm only going to allow these. See, this says fleet sortie : transport. Does that mean I'm not allowed to use it for normal fleet sortie? I don't know. I think I can't play this card. I think this is a Spanish fleet sortie to transport units in the Med. I don't have a fleet sortie card. I look at this. This says fleet sortie. I'm going to say the French are fucked and cannot get their treasure fleet. I did not choose not to do so. I refuse. I'm unable. 16.3. Let me see if this tells me anything. Yeah. And transport is one of, well, yeah, sea transport is one of the types of fleet transport, so I think that was limited, and I think it's also limited to Spain. And I think that's actually correct. Like, I think I'm actually playing this correct with the colors there, even though the rules say otherwise. Okay, so we get to avoid this segment, and that means we will be entering the summer campaign season. All right. Well, we sure did enough to earn a break this time. Given how little actually was done, I'm going to try to play a real game turn before I send this one up. Let me rename these like by the year. I don't know. 40 is the last one. That sounds impressive. I did a whole year on the last video, so and then, you know, I'd have like 2 videos for this year and maybe get to 1 video a year after that. I like the idea. All right. Just trying to make it sound better than like the reality. All right, now we're on the meat of the game, really. But this is the first thing, and it's actually tough. Buy up to 3 depots. You discard a card for each one. French discard 2. Deploy them on map, and then check supply for any major forces, and move depots a couple of spaces. This is not trivial, right? The Prussians need to get depots forward. There's no question of that. Do I need more depots? Well, I've got some over here in reserve, so I don't really know if I need to discard cards for them. But one of the problems is, I think I can pay 2 cards here, 2 cards here. That's 4. 5. A 5th card here, plus any special campaign cards. I've got like 10 to start with, but I've used some up. I'm trying to see, am I going to be in a position where, with each country, I'm not going to have or I'm not going to, I'm going to have to discard too many cards after my draw up here. Because up here you have to drop down. Now France dropped down to 13, but I think I had already played a card back in the event segment back here. But yeah, I mean, there's really kind of a, gosh, what do I have to do? You know, do I need to stockpile depots? I think the answer is no right now, but it is sort of a painful situation to be looking at. In addition, I have to make my plans with the depots that I have. Now, if we find the supply rules, which are relatively late. Where do I place them? These can be deployed on the map. Oh, great. Depot placement. Any non-enemy occupied space that can trace a supply line. And I can chain these. So, I could push depots forward. Like I've got one here that I don't really want it to be there. This is not a good place for a depot to be. I do not have one over in Magdeburg, and I have to consider the cards that I have in my hand, what I might be planning on doing and everything. It really kind of throws you into it, right? Like, so far the game has been kind of light, but I haven't like eased my way into war. Now, yeah, you're kind of easing your way in with most of the other powers, but Prussia and Austria jump right in. You know, I mean, Prussia has to do an attack right off. Okay, it's a fairly limited type of thing, and, you know, but now I really feel like I'm in the midst of stuff. So if I move this as far back as Breslau, I think that gives me a lot of what I want, and I honestly don't know that I need another depot at this point. Let me look at my cards, see if I have anything interesting in mind that I have to play. I think for the most part, most of the other powers, the Austrians are on the defense. They don't really need to push their depots forward. But the Prussians really, I think, are the ones who have to think about this the most. I may also have to think about it with the Brits. Hey, Hanover's in this war. Now, they don't have a leader right now, but if I play that particular card, George ends up going to Hanover and leading the Hanoverian troops. I guess. It doesn't say that it makes George belligerent, but if he's there, he's there, you know. While I was looking through my cards, I didn't see anything that makes me really feel like I'm definitely going to be able to push forward. I have a major campaign, though. That's what this card says. It has no event, but it's worth 4 points, which feels a little weird until I look at this. This is a major campaign that's worth 2 points, but here, 4 CPs for PR bonus activations. So I think I can play it as an event. It removes the card, and it's worth 4. It's an interesting question, you know. Do you want to trim your deck of something that's only a 2-point card, or do you want to keep it in hand and fuck around with it and whatever? It's not a bad discard type card. You need to be able to discard cheap cards at times or whatever. But yeah, I don't see anything too exciting I need to do. Do I need to push anything else? I don't think so. So I'm allowed to move this 2 SP. I'm going to slide this up to Breslau. Hope I can hold Breslau. If I can't, I'm gonna have some supply issues, but not really tremendous ones. Okay? If I wanted to push my line as far as possible, I would probably be up at Glotz. I can't go any further safely. I just don't feel safe with like some sort of lightning campaign that feels very Frederick-like. I'll look at some of the other powers and consider their cards and whether or not they want to move discard cards for depots, move depots, whatever. Obviously, France doesn't give a shit. They're not in the war. They don't expect to be in it. Spain isn't going to be in the war either. So we're starting to have trouble again. So I'm looking over this card. I can't play it yet, but I could play it in the summer. Prussian player may transfer Prussian SPs to occupy Nice? Yes? I don't know. If not already controlled. Okay, so I need to know where this is, and I have no fucking clue. None whatsoever. It's down there. Okay. So I would be able to give that up. In exchange, you transfer all Prussian SPs out of all AU spaces except Silesia. And yes is in Silesia. It looks like it there. I could pull this aside to make sure. Is this Moravia? Okay, Moravia is a thing. Wouldn't be on the map otherwise, I guess. Prussia may not play pillage events, enter AU spaces, or attack AU forces except for in Silesia for the next 2 campaign seasons. This is a powerful card. Place Klein shell marker 1 on turn track. Next season, move to 2 side at the end of that. Is the Treaty of Klein-Sheldendorf. So there's probably a marker there for that. I can't play that now. I was just looking at it. There's a lot of information on a lot of these cards, right? So again, that's again a hurdle, right? It is just the amount of reading and just special information that you're holding in your hand with all the events, etc. that you have. Boy. Now this one I can't play yet. That's no question of that. Treaty of Berlin, but I decided to read it because this is how you get Prussia out of the war. Transfer any Austrians from Glatz, blah, blah, blah. Prussians get victory points. French lose monarch will. Transfer all Prussians to Prussia, Silesia. Okay. Prussia is neutral until at least here. Austria and Britain regain victory points for and may transfer SP steady forts. PR must vacate. Adjust victory points. It doesn't say anything about Prussia losing the points. Now, here's the thing. The on-map points, they definitely lose. So do they then gain... Oh, shit. Do they then gain event points? Oh, no, those are all Prussian on-map. I'm good. Do they gain event points for any territories that they give up? Or do they just lose the points because they accepted the peace? I think they just lose the points. And that's how I'm going to play it. But the card should probably say that. Of course, there's not enough room for all the text that's on the card, but it shouldn't say Austria and Britain regain victory points. But yeah, I again, you know, and maybe it's one of the problems with putting a lot of information on cards. It doesn't really work. Let's see, Treaty of Berlin, if it's in here. That's going to be Austria 13. We're just going to be facing this kind of stuff constantly in the game because there's not enough room on the cards for the depth of event that's here. Okay, here we've got a more detailed one. Come on, seriously? It's all historical information. It's like what you would expect. Like there's no clarification of the rules in there. Most commentary is an imperfect summary of the doings. Oh, good Lord. Good Lord. So this card does not contain all the information that you should have. I was happy to see that there was further information on the card, but what's missing and what seems to be in the card manifest, well, it's not a card manifest, but what's in the card notes is basically the flavor text that would be on a card if it could be. That's what was cut out. Oh, fuck. Russians moved their depot. Got a depot in Vienna that's not doing anything, but I don't know if I really want to move it into more danger. Do I have a depot here? I have one down here. I have one down here in Italy. It's not doing anything for me, but I can't do anything with it. Oh, I had one here. I'm putting this one there. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I think this shows up every year. I can't see how it wouldn't, but like it makes up for the French treasure fleet, which is 20 SP, but of course the French treasure fleet couldn't come in this turn because I didn't have a fleet sortie. So the English automatically like prevent it from showing up. So yeah, I think I just leave my Austrian depots where they are. That's here. Austrian irregulars can move any 2 CH units. So the problem here is I don't have anywhere I can kind of cut supply, so I'm not going to do that. I'll just leave them where they are. And now players get to actually do their campaigns. And here we shift this back. I can use a die for the actual movement points. And it's on Prussia to play a campaign first. And oh God, what do I do? What do I do? You know, I've taken a slice of Silesia. I would like to destroy the Austrian army. To do that, I feel like I need to coordinate coming through here. Now my Prussian main army, 9, 10, 11, 12, whereas these Austrian armies, I don't know their size, but I should have a feel for it, is somewhat larger. And that's for each of them. I have Old Dessau here. He could probably safely come run to do something, but it's a long walk. Now he's got a lot of command points. So I've got to figure out. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a really, you know, this is right in the war, right in the guts of the war already, which is what I was kind of afraid of. And I mean, I would guess Clash of Monarchs was too, you know, with yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna proceed here, but I'll start looking at the Prussian cards, try to figure out. I don't want to play an event. In fact, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm allowed to play an event here. Play one card for CPs or event. Yeah. Now only belligerents get to play here, right? In all this stuff, including the initial supply. Yeah. So yeah, we didn't deal with anything else, but I think only belligerents get to play in all of this stuff here. Maybe not. Doesn't look like it here. I thought. Wow. I thought there was a restriction. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Neutral restrictions. Neutral powers cannot redeploy, activate, or admin march their SPs, leaders or depots, but may play cards for all other purposes. Redeploy was up here. Activate would be what I use CPs for this. Huh. You don't actually admin march or activate, but you do, I guess, deploy your depots. I don't know. All right. So, I don't know what the other powers are going to do. But Prussia's first. and I got to jump in and figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Plus, I need to swap batteries or something because this one's getting low. Oh boy. Yeah, this is going to take forever. I'm not used to CDGs on this level anymore. I think I played was the Time of Wars one, which was a bit of a mess in some ways, like maybe not quite as bad as this, but a lot of questions and stuff about the cards and whatnot. It wasn't by GMT, which is one reason I give this such a hard time. You know, the people involved in this, I just expect a firmer product than a bunch of people who were trying to make a Here I Stand type game. But again, that's more of a Here I Stand type of CDG. This is one that, you know, is really a military, more of a military consideration. And I've always had trouble associating all that. I always have trouble with the AP involved in CDGs as well. Wonder what this year says. I've read it before, but I don't remember, and I'm wondering if I'm missing anything. The redeployment draw skipped in spring. Only Austrians and Prussians receive reinforcements. Okay. That's the only stuff. All right. We have accounted for everything in the wording. Good enough. Yeah, I'm like mentally like delaying getting to actually making the decision. Let's just fucking get to it. Thought is, I'd love to play one of these. I have two of these, Pillage the Enemies. So let me give you some of my reasoning here. I have this Augustus Overawed. So I don't want to move old Dessau here or whatever, because during my event phase, when I can only play events, I'm going to play this so that Saxon leaders, forces and leaders can be combined with and controlled by Prussian leaders without mixed force penalties as long as Saxony is in the alliance. Saxony is in the alliance now, from what I read. The only question there was whether I could have played the card, the dip card, the French dip card, to bring the Saxons in, even though it didn't say may play while neutral. Which feels weird to me. Still haven't gotten an answer. I've checked BGG. Again, you know, I have a number of battle cards and whatnot. There's a battle card here. I have a couple of these Pillage the Enemy. So anyway, what I'm planning on doing is playing this to allow me to bring him down and, you know, cooperate with the Saxons and make this major invasion of Austria. Pillage the Enemy would be great. Place a depot in this. So you can only play if you have a major force in any enemy-colored space that's not currently a Prussian-controlled fortress. Unfortunately, I control fortresses in all the spaces I've taken. And Silesia is just full of fortresses, so I can't actually use this. It's a really nice card, though. Place a depot in the forces space. Roll a die. On a 1 through 5, the enemy player discards 2 cards of his choice. Oh, this one's even better. And on a d6, you pick and discard 1 enemy card at random on a roll of 6. Then in either case, you use the card for activations. This other one is discard 1 card of his choice, and then on a 6, the enemy discards 2 of his choice. In either case, use the card for activation. This one is obviously a little stronger. But I'd get to do a small number of activations, harm the Austrian hand, maybe take away some of their capabilities and whatnot. Unfortunately, I'm not even allowed to play this because I don't meet the prerequisites, which sucks. So now I'm down to like 3 cards to think about. Now, 2 of them are these major campaigns. One of them's a big 4-pointer. What can I do with a 4-point card? Well, if I was France, I could build a fleet. But otherwise, that may be fine and hold this as a 2-point card to use as a discard or for something else. I don't really want to use this. again, I'd rather use this as an event, not during my campaign season, because it's a shitty point card. And I really want to do my combat, right? Other players, I'll be able to play 2 events a turn. I can't really afford to. I need to concentrate on my military. I like that mechanism, okay? Like, I'm not going only harsh on this game. There are some things I'm beginning to really like as I think about it and start seeing it. I like the mechanism of, okay, you're not in the war, and that means you have more diplomatic leverage, etc. You know, more capability to play some of these other cards to do shit that you wouldn't be able to do. You can build up between wars and all that kind of stuff. All feels very good. We'll see, you know, as it plays out. But just from an initial standpoint, I have a feeling that there is a core game under here that if you can get over all the difficulties, is worth it. And, you know, if you can put the time into play, and maybe even in this first play, I'll start to see some of what I like about this. And some of it may be same stuff I liked about Clash of Monarchs, to be honest, because that game really impressed me, and this one is showing signs of doing so, but there's such a hurdle to get over. And it's not just the rules problems and the ambiguities and everything. It's also my own analysis paralysis in dealing with this kind of stuff. It'll blow up, and again, we'll step back later at some point. But right now I'm playing the 4-point campaign. I'm going to keep this here. I can count the points with another die. That'll work just fine. I'm spending 2 points to activate Nassau, and I move him in here for 1. He has a total of 5 points. So I'm at 4. That goes into the fortress fine. There's no interception capabilities. One reason I'm moving Nassau. And then we'll do the siege rolls. Which, I'm Prussian, so I suck. So I'm just at -1. I get a 4. Honors of War. Fortress surrenders and all leaders and SPs of the garrison are transferred to the nearest unbesieged friendly fortress. Any depots are captured. Okay. Unbesieged friendly fortress. I think that's got to be here. This is just as close by rules. I think maybe it could go to either, but I'm going to send it down to Prague because I kind of am having a hard time accepting that. Now that's the Army of Lorraine, which is over here. So we put that there. Okay, and we got no points for that fortress. Now he still has 3 movement points. Ugh. Unfortunately, I don't have I was counting on it costing me more to blow through. Whoa! To blow through his, to blow through that siege. But I think what I do is I'm going to move back and join Frederick. Now, I don't think I can't take command of Frederick. So I'm just going to join him. But I got to leave a strength point back here to keep this. Oh, joining him doesn't work. Fuck. See, joining him doesn't work because I won't be able to move those strength points. Son of a bitch. Okay, well, I think we're good here. We have a fortress. We'll just sit here, I guess. And that means I'll use my other 2, and that gets me like 7 points for Frederick. I can't pick shit up because I need to garrison all these fortresses. Trying to figure... Okay, I've used all 4. Trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Freddy Boy. I mean, I could make a stab down for Prague. There's no question of that. Or, let's apply out of here. Or I could go for Nice and schlag my way through Silesia. I'm allowed to see his commanders. They both suck. Great. I think with the amount of points I have, I'm going to try to go into here. Okay. So I spent the other 4. I'll spend 1 to go into Nice. It'll leave a strength point behind from the main army. Defend my position here. That moves me here. Can he intercept? I mean, he can try, but I gotta check the interception rules. I don't think he can. I think his 0 command rating means he's just stuck there. Just really bad leaders. 9.0. Oh, let me check interrupts. I got one. No, that's not Prussian. Never mind. That would have solved my problem. I've got a number of interrupts. I haven't looked at everything yet, but I've got these Croat hussars and hostility, I guess. I would need to have markers in here, and I don't. Right? Or with an Austrian force within 2 AP. Yeah, I could do this, actually. Place or increase the enemy's force's short supply. Then place CH markers from the box or that AU force on spaces within 2 AP of the enemy and attempt CH raids. That could create like a barrier that's hard for him to move through, but I don't feel like that's going to solve my problem. Just look, see if I have anything else. Yeah, I don't think I have an interrupt. So let's throw some cards on the floor. Make you all dizzy looking at my feet. All right. So yeah, so Frederick moved into there. Now he's going to do a major siege, I guess, and try to take this. He's not good at sieges. Major siege costs 2 more. And British or Prussian, -1. Major fortress, -2. The garrison's not that big. So I'm at -2 on the siege table, which is not good. I get a 2. That gets me a siege marker. That's cool. I actually had a 0 again before. I just don't pick that up. We'll spend 2 more. And now we're at a net of -1. We get a 3. Besiege and garrison each lose an SP, and I get a siege marker. So now we go up to +2, and I take a couple of losses. What are these? Okay. Where's the siege marker? +2. This takes a loss. I got to remember to record losses like this. The main army took a loss, and I got to add a strength point here. This is an important thing when you're dealing with force pools. Obviously, the force pools are, not guaranteed to be right. I could always refigure them, but I want to make sure I try to keep them right, because losses are not permanent. They go back, and again, the game doesn't deal with force pools at all. So now I'm at +2, which neutralizes me out, and I play this for the last roll. +2 -2 gets me to a 0. And I roll a 6, which is a breach. It surrenders. All garrisoning SPs are eliminated. All leaders and depots are captured. So my siege is successful. Hold on. This goes back in here. I'm going to get a victory point for Niessa. And that's cool. That's about as good as I think we could have hoped for here, all told. And Prussia has played a card. Okay. This was the Prussian turn. It's okay, nobody else did anything, but they do their entire turn before I go back. So now they rally, remove worn and DM markers, didn't get any. Supply segment, check supply class and place SS. I am in supply. I'm in fortresses just about everywhere, so I'm good. And now we go back to the next player, who will be Austria. Okay. So yeah, I jumped in. I could have fucked around with my CH markers or whatever instead with the Austrians. So their initial supply, they're fine. Austrian irregulars, I still don't really think I want to do anything with them. And now I can do a campaign. Do I want a big ass force? Now I heard somebody was unhappy because the bigger your SPs are, the less damage you kind of do percentage wise. Okay? So if you're over 30 SPs, your rate of damage goes down and you may actually be at a penalty for having a moderately large force. A huge force, it's going to be advantageous. I actually think this is, again, an appropriate thing. 15, 16, 17, 18 strength points. Yeah, so here's the problem. I've got like 18 in each of these two armies, the Lorraine and the other one. What I'd really like to do, I think, is an admin march, to be honest, and try to get some forces coming in to join me. Because if Frederick is coming my way, I want to be bigger. So I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. But an event may be more useful. So Austria is going to play this Croats and Hussars Pillage. It's 2 or more CH markers in an enemy space or in a force. Oh no, I'm not in an enemy space. Fuck. I really wanted to do this. Shit. This would have given me an activation in addition to that. Okay, I'll play the the regaining the crown just for points. And that's going to give me enough points to do AP cost. I think admin march only costs 1. I'm not sure. Maybe I want to play something smaller. Admin marches. The index is good, by the way. Like, I haven't had failures on it, which is really nice. Just 1 CP, even if it has no leaders, up to 15 SP. The force can move up to 6 APs, regardless of its commander. What am I going to do with my other points? I can do leader movement. Free leader move. Once per campaign card, each power can move 1 leader up to 3 APs without expending any. But I think there's a way I can just move a leader for 1 AP. Isn't there? Let's look here. That's AP. That's not what I want. I don't want AP cost, I want CP cost. Fuck. Playing strategy cards. Campaign points. See, the problem is I can't demote him, from what I can tell, because I have these requirements somewhere. I'm not sure if there's something gamey I can do to demote him. I don't know where it is. It's going to be under liters, right? 3.3. To each of the three, the largest force at the start of the year must be commanded by this. Okay. Let's go here. Throughout each season, forces led by 2-star leaders must be maintained as the largest in each theater. If losses are there, the owning player must remedy as soon as possible. And there's a penalty in it. Look, like I have to redeem it as soon as possible, but there's a penalty on my activations. All major forces belonging to a power that are in violation of this rule suffer a -2 action point penalty on all their activations until it's resolved. But I also must remedy the situation as soon as possible through activations, but at that penalty. So it's really ugly. Yeah, so if I spend 1 action point to move a bunch of these units up to join me, and I don't know that I want to be 30, too many strength points, but I can drop some units off back here with Bartholomew or whatever. But what do I do with my additional points off this card? Is my question. And I'm allowed, this is the thing I can't remember. I'm allowed a free activation, supposedly. Where did I find that? Like a free activation of leaders or something. Where the fuck did I find that? I just read it, Free leader move, there it is. But there may have been other free things. Once per campaign card, each can move 1 leader up to 3 APs. Free leader move by C, picking up and dropping forces. Yeah, I think it's just a 1 free leader move. I don't know. He's not as bad as him. But what was my requirement? Why is this fucker there? He's a horrible person to have in command of that. But I can't get Tron up there easily, who is who I'd want to be in command. This guy's almost as good. All right, for free leader movement, I'm going to move Tron. 1, 2, 3 up here to Klagenfurt. That looks safe as long as the Bavarians don't come in. What am I going to do with those extra points? That's my big question. What do I want to do with extra activation points? Let me see if I have a cheaper card. Cheaper cards, but they're battle cards, and they seem more valuable. This one is a valueless card to me right now, which maybe I'd want to discard or something, but there's nothing special about 3-point cards for me. And there just doesn't seem to be anything I want to do other than activate this force. I can't activate leaders and move them. I get my free leader activation, fine. I guess I could activate him with a point instead, not use a free activation. And then he has 8 APs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tron is now in charge of the Army of Lorraine. That's one of my points. I used his actual activation to move him up there. Okay, that's cool. He takes command. That's one of my 4 points. One of them is going to be to move this. I don't really have another one that I want to do. Like, normally there's stuff you can do with points. Like, you're always like, okay, I'll buy a strength point or something like that. How do I... reinforcements I think I get by discarding a card and getting reinforcements, right? 18.0. Like, there's very little, and again, there's something brilliant about that, because I'm not like, I'm giving up the option, like, I'm only given the option to operate off these points. I really actually like it, but it's frustrating because I'm not used to it. So reinforcements, they receive, whenever a given power receives more than one infantry. How do I get them? I know there's a way I can discard cards to get reinforcements. French, Bavarian, British, Piedmont, Austrian, Prussian, and Spanish on their power map. Do you know, whenever a power receives more... Oh, I swear there's a way I can do this. I'm not seeing it, though. Because here on strategy cards, Army, Fleet, Sustain, Campaign Points, Events, Buy Depots, Fleet Builds, Save Resource Recruiting, that's it. 4.32. Let's see what that's up to. 4.32. That may be something, yeah, early winter. There it is. I can discard unused cards. Yeah, that's no good. And it's just 1 SP per discarded card. Ugh. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to move this then. This whole force. I can admin move up to 15 of it. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Actually, I can use the extra point to move the extra 2. Okay. What I want to do is I want to make sure I am at 30 or less SP in the Austrian army. The Austrian army is sitting at 11, 12. What the hell? Oh no, that's the Italian. 15, 16, 17, 18. So I can move 12 of these. Do I want a shit ton of cav? There's an advantage to that. So I'm going to move 8, 12 of them up this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess. That allows me to place here if I want to. So then these strength points, all this cav goes in here. All this infantry goes here. I'll figure out if I can get extra. That's 15, 19, 20, 30. That's what I want. Any more than that... Uh-oh, battery gives me a brain, man. Uh-oh, fart. Okay, any more than that, and I'm putting myself on a bad table for the CRT, so I don't want to do that. But I can leave these extra 3 here with him, and that'll be 4 strength points instead of 3 with him. Put the extra strength point back. That doesn't go in the force pool or anything. And now, that's 2 of my command points. My third one's going to be an admin move for this, and I will move him also here. So that'll be 6 strength points. I'll make some change just so that I only have 2 counters there. And that is going to be the Austrian activation. Throwing away the bargaining the crown away. Because, yeah, I just don't see it. And I may end up moving my drawn discards onto the table, just so I can see them a little better. It's hard, but I think I'm beginning to get a flow where I can actually like utilize space up here and whatnot a little bit better. All right. That was the Austrian command phase rally. They didn't have anything injured because they didn't fight. I don't think there's an intercept chance to go in there. Gotta check that. When I admin move. First of all, can I admin move adjacent to the enemy? That's the first question. 8.8. Did I cheat? Always important. Cannot end in an enemy occupied unless occupied by friendly units or it's big enough to overrun. Interception. Yeah, I think I had an opportunity to intercept. So before all those command points got spent, notably there were like 3 strength points here or whatever, Frederick has an opportunity to intercept an army. Good God, does he want to? I know I'm outnumbered, and I know I can bring more forces to bear. I think I pass on that opportunity, because I don't want to face the much larger Austrian army. When there's, a hammer back here under Tron. Ooh, but Tron may be better. Like, fighting Tron may be worse than... The way the combat table is, yeah, I want to intercept. Fuck it. Okay. Interception procedure. I have a +2, not mixed. I need a 7 or higher. I do not get it. So, okay. We get to sit there. We go back up here. What did we hit? Rally. Supply. My supply is fine. I could go over it in detail, but everybody's in fortresses, everything's good. So we swing over to the initial supply segment. This is going to be the French turn. They don't get to play these things, right? I think they go straight to campaign card segment. It doesn't say for belligerents. I wish this was notated like belligerents only or something like that, if that's the case, with just like a symbol that I would like complain about because I didn't understand it. Designate player then follows in strict order. No, see here, first power turn. In the strict order listed for the active power and its clients if they are belligerent. I don't think the other players get any of this shit, which is what I thought at first. Playing strategy cards. During his power turn of each summer and fall campaign season, each player can play 1 card for campaign points or as an event. Yeah, it doesn't say as if belligerent here, but the fact that it says it here, I think this is just the case. Designate the active power by moving the current power marker. The active power then performs the following actions in strict order listed if they are, and its clients, if, oh, good God. So does this if they are belligerent refer to both, which is what I'm reading it as, or just to the clients? There would be a comma here if it was just the clients. Okay, yeah. So take back what I said about being able to do more in terms of the diplomatic stuff if you're not belligerent. It looks to me like you don't get to play cards during the campaign season at all. Which again, I can make an argument in either direction. I really liked the idea that you can be more active politically if you're not actually engaged in the war. There's something I believe about that. Build up the navies, conduct diplomacy on people, shit like that. All makes sense. And maybe doesn't make as much sense if, but it may be too much, right? 2 card plays per. So that means that I'm at the event card segment because all the other players are non-belligerent and we push to Prussia. I'm going to pause here and wonder whether that battery is actually charging or not. Yeah, I'm going to pause here and come back because I think that non-belligerents do not get to take their actions at this point in this segment. I think they just skip the entire campaign season portion of it. That's what I read this as. If we go to Complete steps 1 through 4 for each power. Yeah, you know what? You know what's really interesting? This is ugly. So the first power turn is not within steps 1 through 4. It's to designate the active power by moving the current power. The active player then performs the following actions in strict order if they are belligerent. Then I go here, and if I read it strictly, move the current power marker to the next power's box and repeat steps to 1 through 4 for each power. To me, only Prussia has to be belligerent to be able to play cards. Yeah, I don't think that's the intention at all. But again, you know, you get, that's the kind of sloppiness that I'm like, okay, I get why that's there. It's the kind of thing that I find shocking in GMT, though. Like, that's the kind of shit that GMT games nailed down. And here I'm thinking of things like Men of Iron, where the initial rule set was very kind of loosey-goosey. And then they're like, hey, Richard, you know, we kind of have higher standards here at GMT. We insist on this. I mean, compare it to like stuff that, you know, Mark Herman does that's fairly nailed down, that Volko does, fairly nailed down, right on the first copy of the rule book. So it may just be more to do with the designer and whatnot. But here, again, this has been under so much development time and everything. Yeah, but that's a different matter. I don't know why I should be shocked when GMT has messy stuff. Like, when I think about it, Pendragon was kind of messy. I think it's kind of a mixed bag, but they have a tendency to bloat their rule books in attempts to, like, nail everything down. But I think it may depend on the design and development team more than anything else. Which, okay, whatever. Though I gotta say one thing, Volko does not tend to bloat things. He tends to be precise and not bloat things. But anyway, I will pause here and come back a little later because I want a break. And now it's the event-only card play, and the belligerents get to play in this. But so do the non-belligerents, which is kind of the big deal. I got a couple hours before I have to play Raid, and kind of have to delay playing for a couple hours is, I guess, the bigger issue. It's kind of interesting. So I'm taking breaks, watching videos, whatever. But a video came up in my feed of the author of the book that I'm reading right now, and I'm having a great time reading the book. Which is actually part of the reason that I'm playing this, is that I don't want to read any other rules. I want to read the book. But, yeah, so I'm looking forward to being, it's just an interview on the Daily Show. But also, I noted that, hey, I've been doing a pretty good job again of keeping up to date on my dishes. I had gotten kind of bad for, I don't know, at least 6 months or so. Not where it was just continuously full for 6 months, but where, like, I would often have dishes in my sink, and I was not doing them regularly. So that's kind of cool too. All right, so let's start with the Prussians, and I'll give reports as needed. I needed to look this up because I thought this was the case. Over here, the Prussians have some things I was thinking of playing, right? This Pillage the Enemy, right? I couldn't play it anyway now, but it has, as a collateral effect, in either case, use this card for activation. I wanted to make sure. Each power can play a card as an event and enact its effect. However, forces can never be activated in this phase. So you could still play that event, you just would lose the activation bonus. So that is a card you only want to play in the campaign, generally. But I just wanted to make sure of that, because I was like, wow, can I sleaze like an extra activation during a campaign season by doing something like that when I looked at the card. No, you cannot. And here's a kind of annoying facet of some of the design choices in terms of components, etc. I'm playing the Augustus Overawed. Okay, one-time event. I can't play it again as the event. It's fine, I won't need to. I can't play it at all. Fuck. 1742 or later. It's just so hard to read this red on, there's like flame and whatnot. Ah, fuck. I thought I could play this. Okay, well, I'll cross that out. But the point I was going to make is still there. I ignore red text, man. It looks like, I don't know. It's hardly readable. Like, it's hardly even noticeable. But this has effects that play, and this was my whole plan, was to move down through there. And now, oops, not seeing this. I went and hunted it down. I didn't really look for it, but the first time through, I just didn't see this. I saw the effect. I didn't see any kind of limitation that jumps out more. This red text does not jump out. It does the opposite. It blends in with the colorations on the cards and turns into non-visible stuff. That's a design issue I've already mentioned. But here's one that I haven't. I've written down Augustus Overawed. Let's say I was playing it and could play it and whatnot. I know that I can't play this again, but I have nothing to remind me of the effects of it. I don't even have the cards been taken out of the deck so that I can like tuck it under and remind myself, hey, I have this capability. And I bet you if I look here, it does not tell me exactly what it does. Because, like I said, these are all something else. In strategic discussions with the Saxon king, Frederick had intimidated the king sufficiently to have him... that might remind me, but it's just, again, flavor text. I think that any CDG needs to have a compendium of all the cards with their effects on it. Put the flavor text in as well if you want. That's not necessary for play in any sense of the word. I don't know what to do. I fucking wrote it in pen. So now I have a mess in my sheet. I already had a mess because I tried writing with a different pen and I didn't like how it was looking. Not the one that exploded. That one's gone. But yeah, it's a problem because the game doesn't give you reminder counters and the cards aren't removed from the deck, which means they could be sitting over here in the undrawn deck or whatever. I can't just paw through that and look for the card or whatever. So I've got to maybe write notes or something like I would, I don't know. I mean, in a game like EU, but every now and then. Very, very seldomly did I have to write notes. For one thing, the events are marked off in a way, and you can look them up. They're fully written out in the rulebook. So the only time I would write notes is to just remind myself this event is important enough that it has effects, later in play and whatever, and just as a reminder thing. But here, there's just so many cards with so many words on them, and I could forget very easily with the style of play that I do where I'm walking away. And this is not a short game. So I would expect, if it's like a 12-hour game, which I think it is for more experienced players from what I see, like he talks about experienced players, and then what does he say the campaign? Experienced non-AP players. So it's like, yeah, no matter what, it's going to take me longer. Do we have a time length for it? Yeah, this is, I don't remember what he calls it. it's like non-AP minimal experience playtime or something like that, or something along that line. I don't know what he even calls it. He has it defined somewhere. There we go. Non-agonizing, mildly experienced. Mildly experienced meaning, you know, you're not playing it as quickly as maybe somebody who's just devoted their life to the game would play it, but still relatively fast. You're not having to think about everything the way I have to at this point, right? But yeah, that is not me under any condition. But they're saying that would take 12 hours for the full campaign. What do they say? I saw 43. 1740 43 scenario. Oh, okay. It has its highs and lows, yeah. So, I mean, this is going to take me to 48. Anyway, if he's looking at, you know, the average competent player is going to do it in 12 hours, well, I would assume if you had me or a bunch of people like me or groups that I'm usually in, which involve people who are learning the game for the first time, you know, whether or not some of them are able to act more quickly than others, generally because they're not making good decisions, but not that I always am. But yeah, I think you're looking at 24 hours. But at 12 hours, that's long for a session anywhere. You know, maybe you could get through this in a day at a con. If you really focus. But, you know, 12 hours on one game is generally pretty hard. Like, I'm remembering we had trouble finishing, you know, games that were supposed to be like 4 to 6 hours or whatever in a full day at a con. So, yeah, 12 hours, probably still not going to do it, which means you're going to be away from the game for some significant amount of time. So, yeah, this is just not an acceptable tool as a mnemonic device. You know, a card that you read once turns ago that probably isn't available to you anymore. Anyway, back to making my decision. Actually, I know what I'm going to do. I only have one event, so I might as well. I only have one other event, which is the Defensive Pact, which helps me bring the Russians towards me. Wait, do I have a limit here? I have a red play false 41 or later. Okay, I guess I have nothing I want to play. Is there anything else I can do at this point with these cards? I feel like there's something else I can do. 6.10 is the naval rule only. Yeah. And Prussia can't play that. So yeah, Prussia's going to pass, I guess. They do not have an event card they want to play. I mean, they have two they want to play. Both are limited by red text that's barely visible. I have a shit ton of problems. I'm looking through the French. The Austrians also had nothing they want to play. Or could. I have this Belle-Ile Triumphant, and I was looking at this. If played as an event removed, fine. Play after Empire Diplomacy event. Now, in summer campaign season 1740, so I can't play this right now, but again, I have an issue. The Empire Diplomacy event is played. I played it over here. It is not listed on my sheet of paper. Why? It's not on here. It's an event with an effect that has to be remembered. Is it a one-time? Is it anything? No, it's just a diplomatic effect. I don't know if this is supposed to mean something else, like I can play two event cards at once or something. Like if I play the Empire, I can play this immediately afterwards. I don't think so. That's not how I read it. But it is pretty fucked up that I don't mark that down. Now, what is there are one-time events, right? That I think is what's written down there, so you don't replay them. But you do need to know that you played the Empire Diplomacy event. And you've got nothing that records that except maybe it's in your discard pile or maybe you remember that you played it. Oh boy. Again, There may be some things, there are some things about this game that I like, but man, oh man, they fucked it up in so many ways. Jesus. Let's go through my talks. First of all, there's Cartagena, which has this playable when neutral. Now, Kalikowski responded to something which made it sound like, and actually, I don't think he responded to there was a follow-up question, like with mine, of, hey, when these cards say playable when neutral, does that mean that they're not play? He kind of did. He kind of did but with a very hedging kind of answer, which made it sound like whatever. In this particular case, Cartagena might be interesting because of the political or the historical ramifications to it. Let's see if it's in here. Well, it's not in the French deck. It is a Spanish card, but it's in the French deck. Yeah, it wouldn't be in the Prussian cards. Okay, so there's no information on it to give you further, but he talked about the fact that, like, this is War of Jenkins' Ear type stuff and blah blah blah, and the answer was not a complete, if these say playable when neutral, these are the only cards that are playable when neutral. It was not of that nature, which is what I was left with. But it kind of, sort of implied it. Maybe I'll show it to you, because I just feel like there's so much in this game that, like, the answers to the questions are problematic, even, right, as they show up. Let me get that for you. But we'll get to some of these others here. So this consanguine error, I could put Charles as CIC of the largest force in Austria, Germany, Prussia, or Saxony, which would be this force. Now, Nigenporgrig is worse than Charles. So I do not want to do that. Charles is also not available yet, but there's no restriction on that. So I guess I can bring Charles into play with this if I wanted to, but I certainly don't need to right now, right? And then he's forced to stay in command for the year, but I don't think I can remove this guy because he's in the largest force in Austria, and there's like, the way the restrictions are, it feels like I can't, or I'm not supposed to. Beyond that, I have another diplomatic. Now, again, diplomatic can't be, maybe can't be played, right? Because it doesn't say if playable, if neutral. Of course, where's the Belle-Ile one? So the Belle-Ile one doesn't say playable if neutral, but it says play after Empire Diplomacy event in summer campaign, sure. Move Bavarian influence marker one space towards Bourbon. If the alliance occurred or has occurred, France, Spain, and Bavaria are now belligerent. Now, you wouldn't have to say France if this was not playable when neutral. So right there we have a problem. But then this also has a problem in that if I play this as an event, it says use 5 CPs for bonus French Bavarian activations outside the Italian theater. So if I use this as an event to bring France into the war, I don't get the activations, because I don't get to play it here. I have to play it there. I don't think that's contradictory, but it was kind of bothersome. It's like, is this my only entry into the war? I had thought that I wasn't going to be able to get into the war. This does seem to be my only entry right now. I don't have the Treaty of Nymphomaniacs. Yeah, so I don't... This is my only way to get into the war right now. And I think I lose part of the event if I play this. However, it doesn't say play once. Is it over here? It is not over there. So this is something I can play multiple times. So putting it back in the deck to reshuffle might not be bad. But Cartagena could be useful. It gives me some points, whatever. It says playable when neutral, so I could actually definitely play this. Belial, I'm not sure, but it has like this mutual thing. But I don't really need to modify victory points at this point in the game. It is a one-time event, so I can't play it as an event again. I don't know if it's remove. I don't think so. It doesn't have any symbol for that. It has an asterisk, which means that it's 1740. Okay. So I've got this negotiation card. Choose Saxony or Piedmont and roll a die. Well, Saxony is already influenced here, so, and I'm giving up a major campaign for this, but if I play this as my event in fall, if I'm allowed to play Belial in the fall, that's not good. I get a 1 through 3 for Piedmont, and I can move its influence marker towards me. I'll play that, because Piedmont is not allied yet. And I get that, so I get to shift them away, which seems like it's probably a good thing. That was the French one. I'm going to go up and take a look at the wording, and I'll show you what that looks. Confused because this thread was written by a different Enrico. The card tells me that playable when Spain is neutral. I don't know that it says that. It just says playable when neutral. But is only, or can you play when Spain is in war too? This is a silly question. Probably comes to my poor English skill. Somebody answers only when Spain is neutral and Spain doesn't go to war until France does. Okay, but then Kalinkowski comes back with no worries. It can be played anytime, and per rule 7.4.2 under Spain, it can be played when neutral. I'll look to see what that is. The rule there is to highlight this exception, as neutrals can't otherwise move or engage in combat. This card doesn't allow that. And most event cards require the player to be belligerent at war. This card does not, as Spain and England were already at war off-map, per the explanation below the rule. This does not answer the question that I have, which I put in mine, which is, does playable, like, are you able to play? So there's this most event cards require the player to be belligerent. Yeah, is that just the ones that don't say playable when neutral? It doesn't feel like it. And this particular one doesn't actually do anything militarily or anything. It just generates some victory points, right? It's just a minor effect. I don't know why the playable when neutral is there if it's not a restriction. Like, if it's not a restriction on other cards. But they don't seem to be. Anyway, this is very weird. Let's take a look at 7.4.2 next. 7.4.2 is a special rule about the Cartagena card that can be played before France or Spain becomes a belligerent. Why? I don't know. The card already says playable when neutral, right? Whatever that means. It doesn't have any military effects. It just generates victory points. You know, I could be building a cathedral, whatever. It doesn't matter. The card doesn't matter. And then the description on it, this is where I got it. Britain and Spain had been at war since the War of Jenkins' Ear, and it talks about all that, none of which is important to the question. So this is the special rule that he pointed me to, a rule that I don't think even belongs in the game. You know, like, the playable when neutral makes it clear I can play it when neutral. The question is, was it only playable when neutral by the other person, by the other Enrico? And what he got an answer was from Bob was no. Playable when neutral is not a restriction that only allows you to play cards when neutral. But then it's a meaningless statement, completely meaningless, as far as I can tell, if it isn't saying only, like, these are the only cards that are playable when neutral. So like diplomacy cards would not be. Which I also don't believe, because there's nothing in the rules that says that, right? But then again, there's nothing in the rules that says, let me find the one. There was the English card that, like, this card or Protocol of Neustadt must be played before the British player can play any other diplomacy events involving any other powers. There is nothing in the rules that says that. So if you don't hold this card in your hand, you're not restricted as far as I can tell. Because otherwise, how would you know about that card, right? Like, you know. And again, if I wasn't holding a playable when neutral, I wouldn't have even had that question. I would just play, you know, a card, right? The playable when neutral serves absolutely no purpose if they're playable at every time, and many other cards that aren't marked that way are playable when neutral. Which leads me to the, okay, what are you talking about, dude? And when Bob comes back with most other cards are not playable when neutral, but doesn't specifically say that all the cards that don't say this are not. And that's why I made my own question regarding that. But it's like, who knows? Who knows? You know? And I don't want to repeat the question in two places. But it's ridiculous. Like, most of those other cards look like they should be or many of those other cards look like they should be playable when neutral. Most specifically, the Belle-Île card, which actually allows you to enter into war with France. It makes France belligerent. If you can't play that when neutral, then there's no reason that France would become belligerent from that card. But again, there's just so many contradictions in the way things are written and whatnot. It may be that these are artifacts of earlier design ideas and, like, they weren't fully implemented or whatever. I have no idea. But I'm just left with, on that side of the thing, so much confusion. Let me look at the Brits, get their card done, and then we'll go to the end phase and load this up. Fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. So I just threw the 2 points in each of these. I'm not sure I don't think that's what was supposed to happen. So if I were to play something under 6.10 for the fleets, which maybe the French should have done, the fleet reinforcements are not counted against. These fleet sections are placed in the next year's space. When the year marker is advanced, they're available in the Atlantic or Mediterranean. Okay, so if I were to play a card now to build fleets, it would either go into the next year, or I could put it in the spring reinforcements as a reminder or whatever. And anything like that would work. But the question is, there's a special time, the saved resources recruiting, which was where? Saved resources recruiting. There's supposed to be a phase for this. Uh-oh. Okay, may not be on there. Where is saved resources recruiting? I should have 6.10. Oh, do I have this here? Yeah. No. Saved resources recruiting. Each player may play one card as an event in spring event phase, 6.10. That's not what I'm looking for, is it? No. Where's saved resources recruiting? Huh. Fuck me. Where did I find that? One additional discard for the French and British during the saved resources recruiting phase. Huh. When was that? It's not here. All right, let's look to see if I doubt this will be here. Saved resources recruiting. How about that? 4.3.2. 4.3 early winter point 2. Okay, and that's where I have the note. And that was early winter. That's back here. It's got to be in here. There it is. Okay, so yeah, that actually, those fleets are in play already. But if the Brits want to discard one now, it doesn't come in right away. The reason these are in play is they were showing up in 1740. Okay, I am going to play the Dresden Conference. This card, a Protocol of Neustadt. Now, the Protocol of Neustadt is an interrupt of all things that you could play if French or Prussians have 10 strength points within 2 movement points of Hanover. It's the let me defend Hanover. Well, here I'm coming in to help the Austrians. This one would have confirmed Hanover's neutrality, which I guess makes them non-belligerent, but not really. Neither side may place or move units in Hanover spaces for 1 year or until the BR Lord Carteret. The problem with this is it's -1 British monarch will. But this one, I placed 3 Danish infantry SPs, 3 Hessian infantry SPs, and George II in Hanover. That sounds pretty cool. It's putting a threat in here that's going to prevent him from utilizing as much of his force. But, of course, he already has the Saxons, and the Saxon army, well, I wouldn't count on it as being too much against Traun, but I'm trying to take some pressure off the Austrians. So I'm going to play this big 5-point card. It's a one-time event, not remove. It has a boat. Boat doesn't matter because I'm not playing it for points. Do I have to write it? I do. I have to write it down. And I'll place those units. But also, George II goes there. Now, George II is an English leader. I'm assuming he is operating as the King of Hanover, or is it king? Hanover's not a kingdom yet. The Elector of Hanover, I guess. Were they an electorate? Oh boy. They moved the electorates around, and I don't remember if Hanover was one. I don't think so. We got the 3 church ones. We got Bohemia. Did Bavaria become an electorate in the Potato War? God. I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember what George's title was. Obviously, Prussia's an electorate. Bohemia was one, but is it again? I think so. I think they took it back from the Palatinate. Those 3. I think Hanover. I don't know. No, Saxony. Saxony's an electorate. And there's 6. Or there were 6. But again, the number changes, so I don't know. Anyway, I should know this shit. I really should. Once upon a time, I would have. My poor brain. But yeah, so George is showing up there as the ruler of Hanover, not as the King of Britain. So I don't think the English are involved in this. Of course, the Hessians seem to be now. Added the Dresden Conference over here. I've got to do a battery swap. And I've added Hessian and Danish troops, which are all British aligned. They're not allowed to have a hell of a lot. Like there's 4 Danish SPs, 5 Hessians, but only 3 of each came in from that. I assume there's ways to get more. I don't know how. They're not in my force pool. I can't just build them. But we're intervening against the Prussians for their aggression and whatnot. And we'll see. You know, this may be really dumb because George sucks as my general, and I can't be bringing English generals in. Not that it's not clear in the rules. Like, this situation is weird because George is not listed as being Hanoverian, but I assume he's my general. I assume he's not just there to die. So things were kind of like this, and I thought this was the turn marker, so I thought I was going into the end phase. No, I'm going into the Fog of War event. Let's see what we got. We have Fortunes of Power. Which I guess takes us here. Elizabeth Petrovna Ku. Shift Russian diplomacy marker 2 spaces towards the Bourbons. Ruh-roh. Frederick would not like that. And we'll put this one here in the summer. And then we go to the end phase. Advanced season marker. Okay, that's this thing basically. There is not a separate season marker. Remove all CH markers not stacked with AU. Remove all guerrillas. Everything's still stacked. So we'll be moving into here. And that will be the fall campaign. Oh, did I miss something? Because, like, it said summer 41. And I thought I was in spring. Again, I'm used to, like, being able to campaign in spring and fall. Spring doesn't have a campaign in this. Let me look through the cards, see if there was something that I missed. I'm not going to change it, but whatever. I could have done the Belle Ile Triomphante. What did I do for the French instead? I did this negotiations, which involved a die roll. This is what I wanted to play, because it says summer, and I was in the first campaign season, and I'm just used to spring being available. Yeah. Could have done it. Could have done it. I don't know what to say. I mean, it at least, like, it does have an effect that it can't be played until here, because I couldn't play it back here in the spring phase and then have my French fight a war earlier. Whatevers. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to load this up as the first part of 1741. It's full of missteps. There's no question about that. But, you know, some of them are just being flung on me by the components. The little red text on the cards is fucking with me. Even when I do read it, it's confusing me, because it feels like when it says summer and I'm in the first campaign of the game, I'm not in summer. No, there's no spring campaign season in this game. Again, kind of shit that just doesn't hit my cogs or whatever. The little gears aren't catching on it. All right, we'll load this up.